Hello, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the Why podcast this week. This week, we want to discuss the opioid crisis, and we promised you that we would have guests on. So, we have a good guest for you this week to help talk about this with us. I'm Matt.
I'm Chris.
I'm Carvel.
And with us today, we have 318 Chris Terry. He is business owner, philanthropist, missionary, TikTok influencer, and last but not least, and kind of what influences everything that he does, man of God. This is Chris Terry.
That sounded pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
I'd like somebody I'd want to meet.
Yeah.
I don't know about all that, but yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, certainly.
Glad
Thanks
to
for
be
coming
here.
out. Hope you've enjoyed your stay in Bentonville and Rogers, Northwest Arkansas.
Beautiful area. Love it.
It is. So, Chris, you and I kind of met through church years ago. I started going to your gym, so that's kind of the background on how we know each other. So, how did you come about the TikTok thing, the doing the YouTube videos and stuff like that?
That was kind of on accident, I guess. I've always been an idiot and cut up and, just trying to make myself laugh and people around me. But I've never really filmed it. And about a year and a half ago, I started filming it. And then I got a pair of the Meta glasses, and I was able to just click a button and film what I was doing. And it exploded immediately. One of the first videos I posted just went viral and got millions and millions of views. And I just kept going, and now it's a big portion of my life. So it's just having fun and videoing it as I do it.
Yeah, we filmed every stupid thing that we did when we were teenagers, but we were from the jackass generation, and man, we got that little 8mm camera, and we went to work with it.
There may or may not be a student film I made in high school still up on YouTube to this day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So has this kind of replaced what you've been doing? I know you work in real estate, correct?
Right. Well, in all honesty, it has become a big portion of our income. You can make good money on social media. I was watching a TikTok video one time, and a guy was answering questions, and they asked him what's the most money he's ever made on a TikTok live. And the answer was $16,000.
Oh, wow.
And I just had to sit there and think about that for a second. And I'd heard it said a little while before that, if you spend 100 minutes a day for 100 days, you can be in the top of anything you pick. If you just spend 100 minutes a day for 100 days, whatever it is, if it's social media, if it's podcast, if it's, construction, just focus 100 minutes for 100 days and you'll be in the top. And I set my mind to that. And in that 100 days, I got monetized first on TikTok and started making a little bit money. And then I guess it was Facebook next, and then YouTube. And it's been a lot of fun. But my life for years has been quote unquote missionary, just sharing with people what happened in my life and how it changed my life. And I spent a lot of time trying to do that on social media and covering up the idiot that I was and having a limited audience. Well, when I finally embraced the character that God created, and kind of started going public about it, now when I tell them about what else God's done in my life, the audience is a lot bigger. So
you talk about you have a past, I have a past, Chris and Carvel. I don't really know what you guys have done in yours. So that's kind of like, let's lead that into what we wanted to discuss today, which is the opioid crisis and really just drugs in general in America right now.
right.
Chris Terry, that would be my first question to you. How old are you?
53.
53. Okay, so you got like 20 years on me. So I know when I was coming up, we were joking earlier about DARE, but we did have DARE in school. kind of the big deal when I was a kid was we heard about weed and we heard about crack. I'm guessing the crack was probably left over from the 80s. But now things just, it seems very different. Kids are into a whole bunch of different things. Have you seen, being older, have you seen the drug culture in America change, and how has it
Oh,
changed?
100%. Absolutely. The things that go on nowadays when I was, well, I mean, even 20 years ago, when I was your age, I never would have
Yeah,
imagined
that's how
that.
I feel. Yeah.
Um, the way that they help drug addicts in some of these cities is just, I mean,
Now,
I
by
can
help, you mean enable,
enable
basically.
them. I
Enable,
mean,
yeah.
I've seen videos of agencies handing out pipes and syringes, and I understand the concept of wanting to keep them healthy, but I don't think that's the answer. The problem is man is inherently obsessive. People obsess about the wrong thing.
Right.
They get focused on the wrong
Hmm.
thing, and drugs are right there ready to fill that gap. You know, almost all the time. Every Sunday, I get to go to a rehab center in the town that I live in, and share with. It's a wide group. Sometimes it may be as small as 6 or 8. Sometimes it's as big as 30, 35, and it's the same thing over and over again. But to answer your question, it's changed tremendously, tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, opioid was kind of the direction we wanted to take this, and that's strange to me. I mean, I've used drugs, not really hardcore in my past, but I was in a band, and so that kind of goes with the territory. That was, it's really weird to me to see kids and really adults now too addicted to. It seems like it's leaned more into the pharmaceuticals. Chris
Right.
and Carville, how do you feel about that? Is that something you guys kind of perceived?
I mean, I remember when I'm 40, so I remember when I was growing up. I was like at the height of the opioid crisis. We didn't going through high school. That wasn't a thing. You would have so many of the athletes who would get injured. They'd be getting tons of Percocets, tons of Vicodin. They'd be trading them in the schools, and no one would think anything of it. That kind of thing was going on. I remember I was 18, and I broke my tailbone at work, and they gave me a jar full of pills. I took one of them, and the rest got flushed down the toilet. Like, I didn't really see a need to take that. That's kind of been my experience with drugs is basically non-existent.
As far as my experience with drugs, the only thing that limited what I was willing or able to do was my geographical location. Literally, I was raised in a little town called Vivian, Louisiana.
Vivian's a crap hole.
3,000 people. Yes, man, it's rough. Um, a lot of great people there, but yeah, it's tough. So limited access was what saved me. If I had been in a big city, I was ready, to do whatever you had. I wanted a double dose. Um, Started out with liquor, stealing it from grandparents' cabinets. Then marijuana was available. Occasionally, cocaine or meth would show up. Then we started getting fairly regular access to acid, and then X was the first thing that we could get on a regular basis.
Real
And
acid.
and I lived with one of the larger dealers of the area.
Mm.
So it was always there. And then, right as I got married, a couple of my best friends learned how to cook meth.
Mm,
Wow.
So luckily, God had different plans for me, and He put the right woman in my life, and she helped
for
steer
sure,
me
yeah.
away from that in the nick of time. All of my oldest and dearest friends are either dead or still in and out of jail. So I got to witness a lot, plus participate more than I should have.
So geographically, that's a good point. Carvel is from Michigan, and
Right.
you've been there your whole life, or is that?
Yeah, I've been here for a long time. Obviously moved to different places. As you guys know, Asia. I lived there for some time. But yeah. You know, in Royal Oak, where I grew up, went to high school and stuff. It's a in the metro area of Detroit, and as you guys could guess, there were drugs here. You know, there were drugs everywhere and stuff. However, there was a little bit more easier access than where you guys are from, and you definitely see some people that get caught up in that life, and it doesn't end too well for them. I would say we've had a large amount of students from. I'm 40 years old too as well, are going to be 40 soon. And we've had a large amount of students from my old high school that's passed away, and 90% of the cases are due to drugs. Um, and it's not shocking, and it's not shocking to hear this. And I remember first being introduced to like drugs in middle school. Surprisingly, the middle elementary that I went to, it was very I don't know. I don't want to say wholesome, but um,
It was posh. There we go.
yeah. It was sheltered, right? No, we didn't know about the outside world. We were still talking about Ninja Turtles, right? And
That's awesome, though.
you always when you watch those Saturday morning cartoons, what do you get? This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Any
Yep.
questions? So that was like you're glued and you're like, oh my gosh, this is real life. So you're sheltered, right, from the outside world. And going into middle school, I remember there are other elementaries that weren't so sheltered. And they were casually like, hey man, we're gonna smoke weed after school. You wanna come? I'm like, you guys are gonna die. That's kind of the thought process,
Brain's
right?
gonna boil.
Yeah. And it was a reality for a lot of people, even in middle school at 12 years old, that were smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, and talking about things that you've never heard before. And all of us to be in one middle school together, some people um, could handle it and some people couldn't. And when I say couldn't handle it, they got into the game of drugs, not understanding its effect and how badly it could affect your life.
Mhm.
And as a consequence, some of them, succumb to, their addictions or uh, died because they dealing with bad people, drug dealers and stuff. I even had this one friend that, good friend from my elementary, um, and yeah, he just got caught up with the wrong group and a bad drug dealer, and yeah, like he got beat to death. They killed him, lit him on fire, and
Wow.
and it did a whole bunch of stuff to his body and stuff. And it's just, and it's things like that you see that this drug problem, fentanyl, opioids, how it affects us, even though I might not take it, but you can see how it affects people around me and stuff.
Everyone
So,
around you.
Well,
yeah,
and that's what's sad. I mean, Chris growing up in Vivian, I mean, I know he saw this because I grew up in Oil City, which is right next to Vivian, um, and we saw that. And even then, we still used, and these I call them pothead PhDs that they have this idea that weed is not a gateway drug. I don't believe that one bit because I in my teens, playing in a band, and I was in bars way before I should have been, and we would all hang out late at night, and we smoked cigarettes and we drank alcohol, and that's as far as I was ever going to take it. And then I did start smoking a little weed here and there, and I was like, okay, that's as far as it's going to go. But then you get in and you're partying and you're smoking weed, and you're like, oh, this will be okay. I can go. I'm already doing this. What's a little bit more? And that's how I tried other things that I
Well,
shouldn't have.
also, where we're from, they glamorized drug use.
Yeah.
My parents inadvertently did it at home. I can remember my dad watching Cheech and Chong movies and just laughing and laughing. And me as a young person looking at that, thinking that's a good thing. I can remember all the family get togethers on Sundays and everybody drinking and cutting up. And then the saying is, if you want to know who someone is, look at their five closest friends. You're going to be just like those. So if you start putting yourself around these people that glamorize drugs, and this happens a lot of times when we're younger, we want to hang out with the people that are older than us, where they're doing just a little bit
Yeah,
more,
yeah.
a little bit
Mm.
harder drugs, a little bit more of them. And one thing leads to another, and you end up in a place that you didn't think you were going to be. But the glamorization of the quote unquote party life
Mhm.
and the drug life where we lived was a real thing.
Well, this is sad to admit, but that's I grew up in the age of new metal, and we were in a band, and I was like, dude, we're gonna make it one day. And Chris,
Right.
there was a part of me that I honestly felt, and of course, I wasn't a big drug user. I just recreationally did it, but there was a part of me that was like almost looked forward to getting big, playing shows, and ODing on the road. And that's a weird thing to say, but that almost felt like that was the what was going to be the logical end for me.
Right.
Is I
Mm.
really thought that I would be on Ozfest one day and OD on a bus somewhere, and that to me, there was a period where that felt cool to me.
And yeah, it was glamorous to you.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
like,
exactly.
that would be a cool way to go out.
Yeah,
No, I know exactly what
and
you're talking about.
and I think that's what's nefarious now about what's going on. And Chris, this kind of speaks more to your experience, man. You're more, you took those things, Percocet and stuff for an injury, right?
Yeah.
And did you ever worry about that? Was
No,
there ever any
no I
concern?
mean, I feel like I kind of I don't have a very addictive personality. I I don't get into things like that, and that just might be I don't know, predisposition, genetics, something like that. Um, and I kind of always saw you said that it was glamorous to you for all these people doing
Yeah.
drugs. To me, it was the opposite. I would see these guys and I would just think, what are you doing with your life? You're a loser. Like you just sit around, smoke weed and look like an idiot all day. Like what have you accomplished? What have you done
You,
with your life? And
you,
Right.
and to me that was like that's not where I want to be. My
To
friend.
us, it was like,
you,
man, they're living the dream.
Chris and
well, you
Marvell
know what,
are
Chris?
clearly smarter than we were.
No, well,
Right, right, man.
well,
Well,
okay.
man,
So
living
I
the dream.
had definitely had a different path than you guys, where like it was kind of one of those that people were always looking at me, and because they were always looking at me, I had to hold an image, and that image didn't look like being a part of that crowd, and stuff. So I would say that was my saving grace, is the image I had to uphold. But also, Chris, I wanted to mention that there was a time where I looked at people and was like, "Why are you doing that? You're stupid." Blah blah blah. I would never do anything like that. But then, like, kind of later in life, I realized how susceptible I could have been
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
that environment, and I didn't realize, wow, like, actually, I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I kind of had held the image, because looking at people around me, looking at what's cool or what I wanted and stuff, and thinking to myself that I'm not the type of person that would ever get addicted to anything. Man, I'm addicted to McDonald's coffee.
Well,
so, I
I,
mean,
I'll tell you,
like, this is the things. We don't really think that we're not susceptible, but we really are.
I'll tell you, my wife and I have discussed this several times since we've been in the Bentonville area over the weekend. There appear to be a lot of people in the age range of raising their kids that have decided to raise their families in this area, and we were discussing how that it seems to be a smart idea. that it just seems to be a good place to raise your kids, and it's evidence of our lives versus you guys' lives is
Yeah.
evidence of how important that is. That
Mm.
you have to put your kids in the right environment. And something that I notice from talking to these guys at this rehab, we've been going there over 3 years, coming up on 4 years. Every Sunday, they're in there 28 days, so we get to see each person 4 times, and then they're gone, and then they rotate through. But I see a lot of patterns. A lot of, well, men in general are, I don't want to say obsessive, but we tend to sometimes hyper focus, and that's good. That's genetically programmed in us. I mean, we're hunters, focus on the goal and get after it. Some of us focus too hard, and then most of us, at least a percentage of our time, focus on the wrong things. I
Mm.
see these guys that roll through here, and they'll have a lot of things in common with uber successful people.
Yeah.
They have just been in the wrong environment. They've made the bad choices, and all of us are just a few choices away from being homeless, broke, destitute, and everything.
Mm.
And their focus is wrong. If
Mm.
they can realize that their life really does have a purpose, for one, so many people think that they're just a random accident. But when they realize that life has a purpose and they can change that focus, whether it's drugs, alcohol, physical relationships, money, success, whatever the case is, if we can change the focus to good things, and it changes our lives. And
Mm.
I've been victim of that. Even hobbies. If used to, I was never addicted on one drug because it was never readily available, but I was addicted to partying.
Mm.
Mm.
And now, whatever hobbies I do, I catch myself spending too much money, spending too much time, and too much focus on it.
Mm.
So the key is if we can recognize that and fix the focus, then it changes our lives, and then it changes
So I'll
community
kind of
around us.
sidetrack from that. We have a guy at our church here who has been in recovery and he's doing really well. He's got a job. He's holding down a job, doing really excellent. But we were talking the other day, and he was talking about when he went into recovery. He said, I don't think he said, I know I couldn't have done it without the religious aspect. He said, I know it had to have involved Jesus, and I've seen addicts because I've had friends and acquaintances that have gone in, and it does seem to be the truth that you have to have Jesus at the core, that there has to be that religious experience, because I've
Mm.
seen people go through and they either fail or they come out and become a functional addict. Only when you add Jesus into the equation have I seen people just truly walk away from it healed. Would you agree with that? Or
100%. And it usually doesn't start off with them realizing it's Jesus. One of the
Mm.
things that I try to wake them up from is I do this almost every Sunday. I'll walk up to somebody and I'll say, "Do you think it's you?" Some of them will say yes, and some of them will say no. But I'll say, "Why do you call that your body?
Mm.
Why don't you just call it body?" Because you and body is two different things. When they finally come to the realization that they've been lied to their whole life, they've been told they're a body with a soul. That's a lie. You are a soul with a body. You're going to spend a lot more time in eternity than you do here on earth. And when they realize that this is a flesh vehicle
Mhm.
that cares nothing about eternity, you know why it didn't care about eternity? Because it ain't going.
Mm.
This is a earth-based flesh vehicle that our soul is temporarily in. And
Mm.
it's like when you're in a vehicle that's out of alignment. It's always trying to pull to the right. I don't know why it's always the right. It's never the left, but it always pulls to the right. And if you get that steering wheel just right and you lean over just right, then you can handle it and you can drive it. But as soon as you let go, then you're in the ditch. And at the end of all of it, we're in a car that's run off into the lake and is sinking. None of us are getting out of this alive.
Right.
And the devil does everything he can to get us focused on earthly things. But when these guys and gals wake up from the fact that this just in reality is one way of looking at it. A lot of people are talking about a simulation nowadays, and I think that's a good way to look at it. It's it's not much different than a game. When I was a kid, we played Donkey Kong
Mm,
a lot and Super Mario Brothers. And if
heck
you
yeah.
stayed in one level and you did nothing but collect coins, sure, you'd get a lot of coins, but you would miss the purpose of the entire game.
Mm,
You needed the coins to help you achieve the goal. If these guys can wake up and realize that there's goals in life, and following God's purpose for your life has, well, following God's purpose for my life has been, I mean, I can't put it into words. It's been a game changer.
so we kind of hit on we've kind of been going hard on people, using drugs recreationally and for fun, and like you said, it's just part of our culture. But to kind of backtrack onto Chris, I didn't mean like when I asked if you were kind of aware if that kind of helped you, with the Percocets and painkillers and things like that. I meant more like, was there a part of you that your defense was down because it was a doctor who had prescribed it? Because that's what we're seeing now is people are starting out. My former boss had a friend who had knee surgery, and they put him on, I think it was oxycodone, and he got addicted to it. And when he got off, no history of drug use at all, he got off of it and he turned to heroin and eventually died from OD,
Wow.
um, because his doctor essentially had gotten him hooked to this substance.
I think in that regard, it would be my parents who were the ones who led me away from that mentality. My mom, she had worked as a hospital aide for a while, working in the pharmaceuticals room and things like that. And so she was aware of the dangers of things like opioids. It was kind of two competing authority figures where, the doctors might have been saying, oh, no, this is okay, you can take this. And my parents were saying, maybe only take it if you really need it. And if you don't need it, don't bother taking it because it can do this and this and this. And maybe we just need more of those authority figures to, tell the truth to people.
The American medical system is jacked, anyways.
And oh my
Yeah.
God, they had back in those, especially back in those days, it's kind of getting fixed more so now, but in a almost more dangerous way than it was before. But they were pill mills. They were just writing scripts because it made money. A lot of executives went to jail over it. There were tons of fines given out to all these pharmaceutical companies.
Well, they were giving doctors a lot of, benefits for prescribing
Kickbacks,
certain
yeah.
things,
Yeah.
kickbacks, vacations, come learn about our product in Fiji.
Yeah.
A lot of, stuff like that.
Totally unethical. And now, but now the fallout from that is you can't get any. If you have terminal cancer, you have to jump through hoops, walk through fire just so that you don't hurt every day, or you have a chronic pain condition. Those people are left out to dry a lot of times, and it's because a few bad actors ruined it for everyone.
Right.
And that's the real tragedy. That's part of the tragedy of the opioid crisis.
I've heard stories of people going to emergency rooms and being in real legitimate pain or whatever, and then doctors and nurses worried that they're just there looking for pills. But
So, Carville, I probably already know the answer to this, but do you have any suggestions, any ideas on how we could kind of curtail this, how we could make this work for people?
It kind of sucks, man. Like just kind of how things are, right? Like the millennials and part of the Gen Z kind of, or I'm gonna say actually the complete Gen Z, kind of got the bad end of the stick, right? Where it's harder to curtail right now, when it comes to people that are currently using these. People that are not using this, yes, it's definitely what you guys mentioned, which was amazing, Matt and Chris, is that Jesus. Jesus is the number one. That's if you can put him to the forefront and his teachings,
Right.
you can
That's
solve a lot of
purpose. Yeah.
issues, and that could solve a lot of issues with people who are currently using. Right now, currently, it's probably going to take a lot of government intervention in stopping a lot of like these opioids coming from or fentanyl coming from China or wherever they're coming from. Um, Making sure there's always an importance of punishing the dealer instead of
Mhm.
the user because the dealer is the one that's bringing it in.
Yeah, making it available doesn't help.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, making it available doesn't help, and it's like what you just mentioned earlier, Chris. Like the reason why you were not the biggest user is because of your location. It
Right.
was not readily available.
Right.
Um, so if we can make that the same case everywhere in the U.S., we're gonna have a better result. So
Absolutely.
so everybody has to do their part, right? Even we have to do our part, and we are doing our part. Being on this podcast, talking about it, being real with everybody that's listening. Also, at the same time, understanding the people, the users, and understanding that how we can help them, how we can save them, how we can bring them to God, because God is the only way. Jesus is the only way, and also to making sure that we speak out, in front of our when we see other people using it. Right. I remember there was this one case. So I lived, Chris. One thing you don't know is I used to live in Asia, right?
Mhm.
And in Asia, a lot of places, drugs they're punishable by death.
Oh
There's
wow.
yeah, you don't even
I
get an
didn't, that's
opportunity.
not where I thought that was going.
I was gonna
I
say,
know, I was gonna
that's
say,
cool.
so
You know, I've
you
seen
can get them out of
videos.
vending machines.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of videos
No,
like this.
no.
Go to these places and you get opium and just take a nap and
Even
throw up.
I mean,
No,
I
yeah,
mean,
punishable by death. Okay, yeah,
yeah.
probably curves the
I mean,
problem a little bit.
you seen what they did to Brittany Griner when she brought some
Oh
like
yeah.
Yeah.
they threw her in prison and
Yeah,
but
over like
I
a
thought
marijuana
honestly, I
cartridge or
thought
something.
that was more being a black thing, but
yeah, well,
that's
it's definitely I mean it's a pawn, right? She's going to be used as a pawn when the U.S. and Russia are not having
right.
good relationships, but uh, but I remember when I was there, there were some Westerners, especially I think he was from Australia. I can't remember, but I was chilling inside some my friend's place where I was living, and he was talking to me. We were casually talking, and he just brings out this small little case and sniffs a line right in front of me, very casual, just talking, right? And I'm looking like bro, like if they bust in here, they
We're
could
all
be
going
guns
down.
blazing and like they would be like, yeah, these guys had drugs. They don't care here, and it's it's that idea that to me that somebody was so casually just take a line and sniff it right in front of me that and not even afraid that of being killed. Obviously he's being careful using it, how addictive these things could be, and
Right.
how people are willing to jump over whatever
Whose
bridges or
lack of
whatever
judgment.
doing what yeah to do these drugs, and that's letting me know like, man, this is an issue. If this guy if somebody's willing to smuggle it inside of a country, because if you smuggle it, you're dead. Like and you die by a firing squad. That's like, who wants to die that way, if they're willing to take that chances, man, this has got to be something that it's really hard. I heard this study, and I don't know how true it is, but I've heard 25 to 44-year-olds, drug overdoses are the number one killers. You guys believe that? I
Yeah.
mean,
And now, yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, it's something that it's hard to believe, but it's definitely believable because as I mentioned in my high school, where everybody's in the ages between of 25 44, that age group that I grew up with, that's majority of the people have died drug related.
Well, yeah,
So
drug related. I don't think it's. Some people may get confused. It's not just drug overdoses,
Be
but
murder.
yeah,
Shreveport, Louisiana, where I'm from, the killings almost every night,
right.
and it's most of the time You trace it back far enough, it has something to do with drugs
Right.
or the lifestyle, or a beef from something in the past. But you said something earlier, and I want to clarify something I said. I talked about Jesus, and you had said the teachings of Jesus. I want to make it clear that Jesus that changed my life radically is not that blonde-haired, blue-eyed dude on the wall of the Baptist church, with the pretty combed hair and all that. The Jesus that changed my life was a homeless dude,
Mm,
um, dark complected,
mm,
didn't bathe regular. All his
mm,
tightest homeboys were felons. I
mm,
mean, they died the death penalty. And I
mm,
noticed something at a young age when I totally questioned the existence of God. I could look at people that followed the Bible, and I realized that somehow they were more content. That didn't mean they had more money, they had, they weren't healthier, not that. They just seemed to be more content with their life and happier.
mm,
And it got me curious. And in college, I came to the conclusion that I was more than just this body. That what I know now is I was a soul. And um, October 30th, 2004, my one of my best friends and cousins got shot and killed. He was at my
mm,
house, and he left and went to go to a party, and he got shot and killed at that party.
mm,
And I couldn't help but wonder where he went. The
mm,
real him. I didn't understand him as a soul, but I knew that energy could only be transferred. It can't be displaced. And science, true science, had actually proven to me that this wasn't actually me.
mm,
Um, and for the first time in my life, I asked the universe the question, God, are you real? If so, which God are you? And what do you want from me? And this homeless dude named Jesus kept showing up. And I originally just started following some of his teachings. And that's all I want to encourage people to do. I'm not telling you to go to no church, because they're
mm,
probably gonna lie to you. A bunch of dudes in there in suits on the stage, talking a bunch of stuff to get your money. I'm talking about, um, just ask God what his purpose is from you, and get curious about a dude named Jesus, and you'll realize that following his model for life leads to a more content life. And then what happened to me is, along the way, I figured out he was also the way to God.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of people that I think would be okay with that, just living based on Jesus' teachings, leaving the divinity part out of it. But like you
Right.
said, that's a
Yeah.
natural conclusion that you come to, and we even have people like that within the party. I mean, we're based, we're a Christian-based party, Christian Democratic Party, but there's people in the party who are atheists, right? I
Yep.
mean, yeah.
That's
So
how I started.
yeah.
Mm.
One thing I would, we'll kind of segue into that. So our party, Chris, you don't know this, party's pretty liberal when it comes to immigration policy. Um, how do we contend with that in the case of a crisis like this? What's your thoughts on that, Chris? Because the drug flow, the fentanyl, the counterfeit pills, and things like that are coming through the border. They're not really being fabricated here. So how do we shut that tap off, but at the same time adhere to the policy that we put forth?
As far as, well, me, I spent a lot of time in Mexico. I just got back from Belize like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Spent a lot of time on the mission field. We're all immigrants, and that is important to a functioning society. But we have to know who's coming in and who's coming out.
Mm.
Just like you have a lock on your front door, it's not
mm,
because you hate the people on the outside, it's because you love the people on the inside. And I've been to the border, I've walked across it many times. And as long as we're just letting whoever come and go, we're never going to be able to get a true foothold on what is coming and going.
Right.
So I am definitely pro immigration, but I'm also a firm believer in coming in through the front door. So I believe that we need border security, not. I mean, it's just simple. We don't know what's coming through. We don't know who. I mean, we're talking about fentanyl, but or any type of drugs across the border, but also people. If another country wanted to invade our country,
Yeah.
how would they get troops in? They would run them across the southern border.
Mm.
So I feel it's important that we need to have border security, but we definitely need open, easy avenues for people to achieve what in most cases, our ancestors. I think you've got Indian heritage, and I do. I may
I
not look
know.
like it. Oh, you don't?
No, my
I may
wife
not look like
does.
it.
So
I may
so
not look
my
like it.
So
family.
here's oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say my wife is Indian, like Asian Indian, not Native American, and
Oh, okay.
I my family history is more Middle Eastern Ashkenazi. So yeah, I might have that native look, but no,
Maybe it's the hair.
it could be yeah, the hair, yeah, but yeah. So no, we've been kicked out of every country on earth for issuing high interest rate loans. So Chris
Yep.
so what do you think about what Chris says? That kind of does that kind of fly with what the ASP says as far as immigration?
I think so. I kind of feel that the immigration policy for the ASP is a little bit less well defined as some of the other platform planks. It's all based on the dignity of the person, respecting individuals, helping the needy. We're not going to turn away anyone who's desperate, who honestly wants to come in and make their life better. But again, courtesy, that common courtesy, come in through the front door. Don't try to sneak in the back way.
I just want to make this, clarification. Most people who come here illegally, they come through the front door, they fly here. Did you know that? And they get a visa.
I've been on planes with a lot of
overstaying visas. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to throw that out there. Not saying, not putting water
Yeah,
to your border crossing, but I just wanted to say that.
That's true because everyone focuses on the migrant family who's being smuggled by a bunch of coyotes across the Mexican border.
Well, I think the drugs, though, few of those are coming in by plane. I've been on a plane, full of people that are coming into the country, via airplane, visa, and then just never go home. But the drug problem, most of that's coming across the southern border.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, a lot of that is just organized crime.
Right.
It's the drug crisis and the migrant crisis do go together, because part of we'll smuggle you if you carry this backpack.
Well, that's what's going on. There's the drug problem and the drug crisis and migrant crisis. We put those together, but what's going on is bad people are taking advantage of people wanting to desperately be in America. I've got a good friend that's a missionary in Yucatan, and he spent several years in the U.S., mostly in Florida. And he said when he came into the country, he had a backpack full of cocaine, and that's how he got in. They took good care of him until they got him in, and then they cut him loose, buddy. But they take advantage of people wanting to better the lives of themselves and their families, and they take advantage of it, and it hurts all of us.
What do you think the like the solution for that should be? What do you think? What do you got? All of you. What do you think policy wise?
Policy wise, everything boils down to men not being men. Men not following the guidance that the creator of the universe gave us. If every problem, drugs, alcohol, financial problems, stems from men not following the advice that God gave us through his word. I mean, that's probably not the answer y'all were expecting, but if we can get men in line with God, then they make better decisions. Everyone wants a good husband, a good father, a good friend. Well, they don't understand the word good comes from the word God. If you want to be a good father, then you be a godly father. The word evil comes from the word devil. So if we can convince men, most importantly, of course, women are, equally as important, and children too. But when it comes to the guidance of the planet, God um, gave us some specific instructions, and every problem in our lives in the country can be backed up to where someone said, I've got a better plan than the guy that created this place.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, obviously, that's the obvious answer, right, for all
Right.
of us, and it's the right answer. But also too, like I would have two suggestions, and it's based on what we currently see in the world, right? So there's two options, two clear options. One of them is you can take the route of, say, for an example, a country such as the Philippines. When Duterte came into office,
Hmm.
drugs were rampant around the Philippines. He installed a type of fear to drug dealers and drug users where the country and its people pretty much fought strongly against the use of drugs.
Right.
And as a result, many people stopped using drugs. However, there was a lot of people that died during that whole process, right? And that's an extreme for the U.S. U.S. is probably not going to be a country that will go to that extreme because,
Hmm.
like China, all of Asia, Russia, a lot of these very ultra conservative countries, they have the opportunity to go to the extreme, and as a result, there is less drug use in those countries than you have in like the U.S., Australia, South Africa, Europe, etc. That's that's one. For a country like ours, the option two would be to build up your neighbor. And that's something that kind of sucks, but it's something that a lot of Americans in our hearts are becoming a little bit more toxic, where we're like, well, they got to pick up themselves with their own bootstraps.
Right.
But in actuality, you kind of have to help your neighbor out and help them deal with their issues help them deal with your issues in order to stop your current issues.
Do a lot of work at Cumberland Farms in Bossier City, Louisiana, just across the bridge from Shreveport. We used to call it the K-side neighborhood, and it had Bossier's highest murder rate, drugs, prostitution, robbery, theft, all of the bad numbers. They were the
Hmm.
highest. Right before COVID, we went in, started an urban garden. COVID hit and kind of slowed things down. Now we've got a community house there where they're able to come in and do training for all kinds of life skills, sewing, learn, technical trades, wash clothes, all that. Now we've got a donations only coffee shop there. But I
Mm,
have, over the past 5 years, I've gotten to see the entire neighborhood transform and
mm,
change. And the things that used to be cool in the neighborhood are no longer cool.
mm,
Now, things that are cool are different. We, as a society, have glamorized the wrong things through film, through television, watching programs, you know, um, and now we have a unique opportunity. We, the people, have, for the most part, taken control back of what entertainment is.
mm,
If we can do our part in changing what people want to watch, like my videos, I do a lot of pranks. I don't know if you guys have watched any of them, but I do a lot of pranks. But I try to keep everything wholesome. I try
mm,
not to aggravate anybody, although sometimes it doesn't work. I had a lady get pretty frustrated the other day. But even through the whole thing, I was nice to her and everything, but we just do our job as the men of society to change the focus. I mean, the music. I don't know what kind of music y'all listen to when you are kids, but the music that I listened to when I was a kid, a lot of filthy rap. But
mm,
also I listened to a lot of heavy metal that was
Yeah.
glamorizing speed and
Yeah.
cocaine and the wildlife. And then I was listening to Luke Skywalker and the Two Live Crew, that every song was about immoral relationships, and and all that was glamorized.
Mm.
If we as good men, godly men, can do our part individually, um, I mean, the world's not too far gone.
No, it's not. I mean, and it takes really good men in offices, and
Right.
people that are,
Leadership in
yeah,
general. Yeah.
leadership in general too as well. And that's one thing that sucks about politics, and the reason why the ASP exists right now is because we just don't have good members in leadership right now because
Right.
either they're focused on you know they're focused on the wrong things outside of God. That's kind of how I perceive it.
So a lot of states now are moving towards legalization of marijuana.
Hmm.
Now, do you guys think that this is a positive development in that fewer nonviolent offenders end up in prison? Or do you think this is a negative effect to, create that gateway to harder drugs? Or does it just encourage, drug use and negative social things that are tied to that? Um, I'd love to hear you guys on that.
So I am probably, it's kind of odd because I've kind of been bad mouthing it, but my outlook on drugs is actually quite liberal when it comes to like a natural drug. And there's a lot of nuance and caveats to this because weed, Chris, you know this, weed is not the weed we used to have. Like my sister is a professional pothead. And years ago, I had a project management job, got super stressed out, come home. She's like, calm down here, hit this. Oh, dude, I was wrecked. And I was like, what is this? And she's like, oh, that's that like purple space gorilla. And I'm
Yeah.
like, dude.
Uh,
So, but marijuana, mushrooms, these psychoactive compounds that come from plants, I feel like God put these here for a reason. And I understand the downside to it. There's, a lot of Christians that would probably debate me on this, but I've seen positive outcomes with PTSD treatment with psilocybin. Um, Lance, I mean, that's how he said he got off methadone was
Well, I
psycho.
think the same problem. I 100% agree. God didn't make a mistake. The problem is the overindulgence. Man is programmed to be obsessive, and even when it comes to marijuana, a lot of people want to revolve their entire life around it, and make bad decisions. I agree with you. I've never seen a someone driving stoned and crash and kill a bus full
Right.
of kids. Most of the time, they just stay at house and don't go. I am of the opinion that if that's what they want to do at home, then we shouldn't treat it any different than we do liquor.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to rank them, liquor is way more dangerous than marijuana. I've got a good friend that is a missionary. Well, he was a missionary right outside of Denver. He's gone now, but I was up there on a mission trip with him, and he said something to me. He had a different opinion than I thought. He was like, Chris, I'm really kind of encouraged by everything I've seen done with the tax dollars. And I thought, well, that's a good thing, but there's good ways and bad ways to get money. So I guess at the end of the day, I really don't have an opinion on it. I don't. I mean, we've got to be careful how much we control people's lives, but we
So,
also don't want to give people
well, yeah, we don't want to, trap anybody into advice. But so my degree's in criminal justice, and part of my senior capstone project for that degree was you had to completely dismantle and rebuild the criminal justice system. And that was kind of my philosophy on drugs was if you possessed um, an amount for personal use, you're good. If you possessed um, unprocessed, so like if you were running around with cocoa leaves, you were fine. Cocaine, you had a problem. So you couldn't just be running around with processed stuff, but you could have enough for personal use. And that's kind of how I look at it is if we, like you're saying, Chris, with marijuana becoming legal, certain amounts or certain ways, I think that's a good thing. The biggest upside to it is I think it will definitely help the black community. There's so many, I mean, black men are overrepresented in the criminal justice system, and part of that is because they get these excessive sentences for something as stupid as having a little bit of weed on them.
No, well, the jail sentences have been crazy
Yeah.
in the past, and I agree that it disproportionately affects the black community because it's more encouraged in that culture even than it was in the culture I was raised in Vivian, which
Yeah.
we're half black, half white.
Oh, probably more than that.
But back then, it was cool to do it, and I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time in the Cumberland neighborhood. It was the same thing there. It was cool to do. So
Mm.
I mean, if we
So I would just like to see it. Carvel, you are with me on this. I think we all probably agree with this. Cultural change is a huge thing. That's a huge war to win. Um, if you can change the culture where, like Chris was saying, drugs aren't an over an indulgence, it truly is used as a medicine, as kind of a wind down type thing. I think we're okay with it. It's the problem that people are trying to escape reality with it, and they're just baking their
right.
brain with this stuff.
Well, I think we are kind of, obviously I don't know the trends. I don't know where we're going to be in like 15, 20 years, but we may be in luck, right? So, from the studies that I've read, that the adult use of marijuana is going up. It's rising. However, the teen use of
It's
drugs,
going down.
it's going down. It might be the same or going down, and this might turn into something very similar to cigarettes, right? Our generation, the millennials, Gen Z, had started to see cigarette use as being a little bit more disgusting or not useful, right? With the legalization of weed, what we did see is that those big time drug dealers who were putting, had these crazy mixes of, marijuana. I don't know marijuana that well, so if I'm using it, the crazy
Oh,
mixes,
people put
whatever.
all
I don't.
kinds of stuff in there, and
We're
Hair had
probably
me
not.
fooled, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
I know, right? Uh, we're not seeing these local drug dealers dealing weed, right? Because
Well, the
they've
criminal
been
aspect
bought
out
out.
of it is
Yeah,
great
you,
for
you
sure.
take the criminal aspect out of it, and you have these people that have these big businesses, right? And so now these teens they probably don't have uh, the access to the more, potent or more stronger, whatever it might be. They might still have access to the corporate side of it, but they're probably gonna end up viewing this. Some of them could be end up viewing this like cigarettes, right?
Right.
Spiritually, I don't think this is good. I still don't think it's good. It's something that I will teach my kid, like, hey, this is not something that God likes. But at the same time, looking at that from a culture change, a culture shift, this might be something that was needed. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I can tell you that with this, the millennials are lost, right? So we can't do anything about the millennials.
oh man, I got over it.
We might be able to save the alpha generation, Gen Alpha or whatever they're called. I forgot what they're called. But I don't know about Gen Z, but the millennials are lost. So we'll see what happens in the next 15, 20 years. Um, yeah. So that's my take.
What do you guys think that the party's position is on? I believe the party's position is uh, complete prohibition. If I'm incorrect, please let me know. But I do think that they are against illegal drug. Like they want to continue the illegal drugs being illegal. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah.
Uh, Go ahead, Carvel.
Oh, no, no. I would think generally, yeah, I would think the party's position is something that they've. Goodness, actually, I would assume that the party's position would be more conservative on this issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, when sentencing and people
Yeah.
getting more liberal on that issue.
Right.
Uh, but I don't know. I think for us four here, um, we do see some positive and negatives, you know, and and I don't know about you guys, but my mind honestly is not 100% made up on um, the whole drug atmosphere of, how do we penalize it? Are we okay with it? Are we against it? What parts are we okay with? What parts are we against it? Especially dealing with you know marijuana, opioids. I think we kind of have a obviously
Yeah.
we have to have an ideology that it's not acceptable, um, and when it comes to drug use.
Well, we just have to
Right.
have the medical industry step up in that regard and work with us on it. I mean, the medical industry is bad about that. That's something I went through when I was in therapy for a panic disorder, and they wanted to put me on SSRIs, and the first thing they wanted to try was Buspar um, but this is right before we moved to Arkansas for the first time, and they refused to prescribe me anything because they could not follow up with me. They said, "You can't come into the office. We can't check on you and see how you're doing. We're not going to prescribe you anything." And I was like, "Well, that sucks." But they said, "Go to your primary care." And I went in there and was like, "Hey, I have anxiety issues. Would you prescribe me Buspirone?" And they were like, "Yeah, no problem." And they just wrote me a script out. And they've done that for other, Clonopin. They were a little bit more iffy on the Clonopin, but they were pretty free flowing with the Clonopin, hydroxyzine, which Clonopin and hydroxyzine, if you put those two together, whew, like you ain't gonna wake up. So yeah, I mean, but they'll just give you that stuff. So maybe like Chris is right. Maybe they have tightened up on the opioid thing. I know I had a cousin who was in pain management who was having trouble and had a legit reason for this stuff to be prescribed. But we just have to get the medical industry to work with us on this stuff. Going back to the illicit, illegal drugs, it's a cultural thing. I wouldn't be opposed to complete prohibition, which I think you guys are right. I'm on national committee, so I apologize for not being more insightful on this, but I feel like, there's
I just looked up the party platform on drugs, and the official party platform right now is opposition to any legalization efforts or to create a corporate industry of drug production, but at the same point, not attacking the users of drugs, providing programs
but
for.
that's what I was going to say. If you, I'm okay with the prohibition if we can change the landscape to where things like psilocybin, medical use marijuana, is more researched. If we're open to having more discussions about that, where it's not something so nuanced and where it's not, you have these huge. I agree with against the corporatization because I think there's a whole list of issues with these new corporate weed dispensaries and things like that. That's a problem. Um, but if you're open to using these things, if the medical community would be a little bit more, on board with testing these things and getting them approved and getting them, used in a controlled setting, I would probably be more on board with the prohibition. But we just don't see them budging on that. I mean, we're having to jump through hoops for somebody. Nobody's ever died taking mushrooms that I know of. No one's ever done anything completely crazy on psilocybin, and ketamine therapy. Theo Vaughn has talked about that on his show. It was very helpful to him, and it's kind of gotten a bad reputation because of Elon Musk lately. But that's my thing. If we're open to helping people use this stuff in a proper way, fine. I'm fine with prohibition. If there's no money to be made and you don't want to open up a professional market for it, then you got to let people have some kind of access to it. Sure. Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Glad that you hung in there with us. I feel like we got some really good content. Hopefully, you took something of value away from this. I would just like to sign off on my part and say, don't give up hope. I know right now life seems really purposeless, and it's really hard. Living's hard, and you're trying to cope with something. Um, the best advice that I can give you if you're struggling with addiction is make use of the resources that are there. There are a lot of resources that can help you, rent, jobs, of recovery and things like that. But ultimately, you're going to want to have to do it. That's the only way I got out of it, was just realizing I couldn't do it anymore. I put it down cold turkey, and can't recommend that for everybody. Do it safely, but just know that this isn't the way, and you're going to have to be the one to walk away from it.
What I want to add is, this is a pro life party. You should have a pro life attitude, and I hear a lot of talk about, oh, they're just junkies. Don't even bother with the Narcan. Just let them OD. Because they're worthless. And they're not. They are a human being. They are somebody's child, possibly somebody's mother, father, somebody's sibling. Someone will mourn their loss. Someone is already mourning their loss from what they're going through. So we just need to step up and provide, that care that they need to be productive members of society, to be healthy human beings, to be the people that God wants them to be.
That's great, Chris. Yeah, and Jesus tells us when our brothers are weak, turn and strengthen him. That is important. When you see your brother in trouble or in need, make every effort you can to strengthen your brother, and he'll appreciate it later. I promise you. And if you're currently going through this situation, seek help, find help, do whatever you can possible to make a better tomorrow and get help. We love you guys. That's all it is. This party loves you guys. This party wants you, and we're rooting for you. And that's it.
I like what Chris said about sometimes society will count them out. I see it every Sunday. People that just feel like society has counted them out. They can make a change as long as you're drawing breath. There is still an opportunity, and I can speak for myself when I say that following the teachings of a dude named Jesus radically changed my life. Men are addictive, obsessive creatures, and a lot of times we just lose our focus, whether it's opioids or gambling or liquor or playing video games. We just get focused on the wrong things. If we can wake up and shake off the world and do our best to figure out God's plan for our life, then we're a lot more content. But in a lot of cases, the people with the most potential are struggling with addiction. If we can just help them change their focus. That's one of the things about when you learn a lesson. It's like Matthew chapter 7 when Jesus talks about judgment. He says, "Judge not, lest ye be judged by the same measure." If you read further along through there, he's telling you how to judge, and it's a righteous judgment. What happens is if we can figure out something in our life and we can fix it, then we identify people that can use that help and we share that with them. Like if you're in a hole and you figure out a way to get out, turn around and grab your brother and pull him out of there. And that's important, lifting each other up.
So, Chris, to bring it back up to a happier subject, Chris makes all kinds of cool prank videos. He steals flux capacitors off people's cars and goes and orders butt cheese from the supermarket and looks for dehydrated water. And Quinn was over here not long ago, and you and Quinn go back. Quinn's my father-in-law, and he was like, "I don't get it." So that's what Quinn had to say. But anyways, Chris, where can we find you if we want to watch your videos?
On Facebook, just Chris Terry. You can look up some of the pranks like Bag of Math. You can probably just Google that and it'll show up.
Bag
on
of
Facebook under Chris Terry. YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, it's 318 Chris Terry. But yeah, I like to have a good time.
Yeah, it's good. It's important, man. So thanks for tuning into this episode. God bless, and hope you guys have a great week.
Thanks a lot, guys.